are at the Jason and Peely Project, brought to you by Podmax right now. I am recording this with Podmax with the amazing Carol Scott. Welcome, Carol.
Peely, you are way too kind and generous. When we talk about amazing, you need to look right in the mirror because that is absolutely you. I'm so thrilled. We are finally connecting. It has been a year. I don't know about you. Maybe you've got it all ironed out. I certainly do not. So managing, making everything happen has been a challenge and then some. So I am thrilled that we are finally in the same space at the same time. Thank you.
Yes, it has been a crazy year. It's so funny because, folks, I almost forgot to hit record because both Carol and I popped on. It was like on. We were just like laughing our heads off.
Let's go
Already, and we had said maybe all of 10 words to each other. So this stick around because this is going to be the podcast of all podcasts. It is. I'm renaming it the Carol and Peely Podcast. Actually, that sounds really cool. We might have to leave our husbands at home.
That's another whole rebranding issue, and you don't need more work. I mean, come on. I love it in concept, but yeah, here we go.
Let's talk about this year. You asked me before we came on camera, how have I been balancing this year? And I have to say, I think for the most part, considering everything, let's be honest, there's been times when all the balls have dropped. All the balls have just dropped, and I'm just like for instance, this morning, I have like a system going, and it broke in a very, very big way. And so all the balls dropped. So Jason and I picked all the balls up one by one, looked at the balls, and we're like, okay, that one cannot happen. That one cannot happen. Okay, this one can happen. And that ball was Carol Scott. So Carol, how has your year been?
You are speaking my language 1,000,000%, right? If this year hasn't taught us what it means to just give up control and prioritize, not on a monthly, not on a weekly, but on a full-on daily basis, I do not know what has, right? Very similarly, after all these years of doing all this work together, you finally kind of get in your groove, right? Being a mom and being a business owner and trying to do it all and be superhuman. I can't tell you how to do that. I've never figured that out. I personally don't think it's reality by any stretch of the imagination. But what we have learned along the way is every day you just look at what are the priorities. How do I make those priorities happen? And some stuff is just going to have to go by the wayside, and that's okay. So it has been a year of challenges and crazy stuff thrown at us. And it's like, bring it, come on, because I'm ready to figure out how to make it happen or not.
And the key to what you just said is that or not. What can you tell? And let's be real, let's talk to the mamas out there right now. What can you tell to those mamas who are just like, who can't grasp the or not yet? Like they can't drop those balls and they're down on themselves every day. Because you and I have both been there. Down on themselves, like they're not getting all the things done, whether it be motherhood or business or entrepreneurship or getting whatever business off the ground or like simply changing their child's diaper. Because I haven't done that. I actually left my child in his soiled diaper for Jason. Okay, tangenting. Anywho, let's go back to you, Carol.
Number one.
What do you say to those mommies that need that extra, it's okay?
Well, Peely, let's start with you. It's okay that your baby has a diaper. It'll get taken care of. And moms, guess what? You do not need to be superhuman. You are a worthwhile, wonderful, fantastic person, and it's all okay. I mean, I literally have tears in my eyes thinking about this because I don't know about all of you, but I struggle with it every day, right? We are all, let's face it, we're all overachievers. Every last one of your listeners, Peely, we're born with this drive, and we've all been brought up to know to be in this situation where we're like, we can do it all, we will do it all. Well, you know what? I think this year has proved over and over, you can't necessarily you cannot do it all. And that doesn't make you any less of a phenomenal, fantastic, wonderful, loving, accomplished, respectable person. Okay, we're moms. Everybody has different priorities, but of course, I think a lot of us would agree at the end of the day, the most important priority is our babies, right? It's just if there are 1-year-old babies or if there are 30-year-old babies or anywhere in between. And as long as our babies are okay, then our hearts are okay and we can continue. So that is my piece of advice. And every different things work for different people. But for me personally, I would just recommend realize it's okay if your house is a complete, utter disaster. It is okay if you had to put off that deadline you promised to somebody. It's all okay. As long as your babies are okay, ultimately you're going to be okay. It's all going to work out. I don't know if that's helpful. Do you feel the same way? I mean, seriously, in the whole scheme of things, and I know we have been trying to connect for such a long time, but at the end of the day, realistically, if Jason were not available today, right, with your emergency that happened this morning and so on and so forth, I suspect that realistically, it would have been okay to push this off to another time, right?
It would have happened no matter what. It would have, or maybe it wouldn't have. And so ladies out there, Carol just gave you all permission, just told you it was okay. And sometimes I need that as a mom. Sometimes I just need another mom, maybe even my mom, to say, Peely, it's okay. It's okay that it all fell apart. You are strong. You are worth it. You are enough. And I'm talking to you ladies out there. You are strong. You are worth it. You are enough. You know you, and you know you can pick up those pieces and make it work. So Carol, I'm just so excited to have you on right now. Let's talk about, and ladies, if you guys don't know Carol Scott, and I know I explained this all to you before, but she has over a decade of experience in real estate. She has an amazing family, an amazing husband. She's a part of the BiggerPockets family. She runs with Jay Scott, the BiggerPockets Business Podcast. She has all the things happening. So if Carol tells you it's okay, then it's okay. Okay? Okay. So
you are too much. I love it.
What other bits of advice can you give those real estate mamas out there who are just jumping in, whether it be it doesn't even have to be real estate. What if they're just trying to jump into a business? They're trying to jump into manufacturing, whatever it is. How can they get started? How can they get over the mindset that I have too much to do and I can't?
That's such a good question. And I think, Peely, that's a question we all face when we want to venture into something new, right? And I cannot even tell you the number of people, the number of moms who reach out to me, the number of husbands and dads who reach out to me and say, can you please help my wife? Can you please help my girlfriend? Can you please help my significant other figure out how to make this all happen? So the number one thing that I think you all need to remember is every last one of us has that question, has that big question mark, has a little bit of self-doubt. We all have confidence to some degree, but if you weren't wondering, number one, how you're going to make this happen, no, you're just not being realistic, right? So number one, give yourself permission to question, is this the right thing to be doing? Because we're all facing that, then we start something. And then after you give yourself permission to question that, just start doing it, even if it's in little itty bitty bits. What's worked for me really, really well in a way that might work for you, just a little piece of advice, is even if it's in the smallest way ever, find any little way you possibly can, if you're a mama, which you are because you're listening to this show, to get your kids involved. If it, for example, in real estate, right? We started our business in 2008, I guess, right? And I had our first baby. Well, my first baby was in 2009. The next one was the beginning of 2011. They're 15 months apart. So our little guys, like, we joke about the fact that when my now 11-year-old was 5 days old, right? I had a C-section, and we left the hospital, and we went right to a closing. Yes, we really did. 5 days out, but it is what it is.
You're a mama after my heart.
No, it's just, but the thing is that I'm going to segue for a little bit, that I'm going to come back to this. Another thing a lot of people have asked me is, my kids are so little and they're at home now and they're not in school. So and I want to spend all this time with them. So how can I possibly start an entrepreneurial adventure? How can I possibly get into real estate? How can I possibly take on more? Looking back, this whole hindsight is 2020 thing, I promise you, the older they are, the harder it is, right? I know that sounds completely counterintuitive, but now, once your kids are in a schedule, if you're not home, I mean, let's take 2020 out of the equation, because that just mixed up all the rules, right? But that said, when your kids are a little bit older and they're on school schedules, or they're playing baseball, or they're doing play dates, or they have Girl Scouts and all this other stuff, believe it or not, that's when your schedule is actually a lot harder and it's a lot trickier. So my advice to you is, even if your kids are little guys, do it now, even if it's in little bitty bits, because then your world just it evolves in that manner where your kids are accustomed to being involved every step of the way. And then when you're at a baseball game, when you're at the Girl Scout meeting, when you're running the PTA bake sale and everything else in between, your kids are so just accustomed to it that you're just going with the flow in your business, and the other stuff kind of are all lumped into one, right? Like, I've never really bought into that whole term, the work-life balance, because to me, it's all one big thing, right? I think we're all in that same boat. And thank goodness, like I talk all the time about, thank goodness we live in this amazing time when there's all this technology. And P.S., I'm massively technologically, is that a word? Technologically challenged. I cannot figure it out, which is funny considering I worked in tech in Silicon Valley for a long time before we went into this real estate investing thing. That said, thank goodness we live in this day and age where we are able to have all of these technology tools at our fingertips to help us just manage, I hate saying manage everything, but that's what we're doing realistically, right? We're trying to do as many things and make our families, make ourselves, just make everybody happy, right? And just do the best you can to do so many different things in so many different places. So I'm just so grateful that we live in this time when thanks to technology and thanks to, I think what was a long time coming in women and moms, just kind of, I don't say rising up, but kind of coming to the forefront again, in people being more accepting of, moms do want to work and moms still want to be moms. There's still a long way to go, but there's been a lot of progress. So I'm so grateful we live in this time when we're able to experience that and make our work part of our kids' lives. And so they don't even see it as work. It's just part of their life. And we can all together work in our family units to drive the family forward. So it's just, that's just the kind of way, that's the kind of the way we approach it, I guess, right? Is we don't try to separate, because there isn't separation. Let's just integrate it, say it is what it is. We prioritize and do the best we can do every day.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much, Carol.
Hey guys, again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our show.
And if you love what you see, and I know you do, please rate, review, and subscribe. It would mean so much to us.
Yeah, it absolutely means the world to us, helps us get out to a wider audience, really just capture more people that we can help here with this show. Again, if you're getting value, check us out. thank you again.
So grateful to you. I really, really want to segue into how you worked it out, like the nitty gritty, like having the kids at home. I have stories, and I know you have stories of Zoom calls and having your kids at home. I hate using the word balance, but how did you balance both of that?
Sure. Well, the biggest thing, I think, Peely, from the very beginning, I made a conscious decision, right? And I think a lot of us do this. We make a conscious decision that we're leaving our, if we're going into this whole starting a new business and so on, or starting investing, or starting whatever the heck we're doing, we make a conscious decision to leave our old job. Because of a big reason is because we want to be able to be there for our children, right? And that's one of the drivers of it in the first place.
Big why.
So, I'm sorry?
The big why.
The big why. That's exactly right? You want to create this lifestyle so that you can be there with your kids. You don't want to, you don't want someone else raising your kids. So the way that I've always approached it since the very beginning is I was like, you know what? Well, if I left this like amazing, on paper, amazing, glamorous, travel around the world in private jets, making way more money than anybody should be making for doing what I was doing, if I'm going to let all that go to start a business and it's for my kids, then I'm going to make darn sure that nothing is going to stop me from including my kids, right? And so back in the day, for example, I remember one specific example. So we've done over 400 flips at this point. And these were back in our flipping days. I also started a spin-off staging business. And I remember one day I was with this one client and he wanted to have his house staged. And I brought the boys with me and they were just turned 2 and 3. So 2 kids in diaper. Well, yeah, they were still in diapers at 2 and 3. And you know what? It was all okay. They weren't potty trained right away, and it was all okay. It all worked itself out. Anyway, they're still in diapers. They're crazy. I mean, the kids, they're 2 and 3. They're crazy kids. And I brought them with me because Jay had a meeting on something and I was fine with it. They're running around, they're being crazy. One of them starts crying and my client looks at me and he's like, I just can't even focus with your kids here. And I said, I'm happy to leave, no problem. And I was really nice about it, but I'm like, no problem, we don't need to be here. And I started walking. He was like, no, I really want you to do this job. I'm like, well, then my kids are part of the package. If you want to work with me, you're going to work with my kids. And I didn't even apologize. I didn't say, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I'm sorry they're making noise, because I wasn't sorry. I knew I had a lot to offer. You mamas, you have a lot to offer. You bring a lot to the table. You want to accomplish a lot of things. And so the recommendation there is make a conscious decision from the beginning to work with people who are not only accepting of you working alongside your kids, but who are supportive of it and who are cheerleaders for that situation. And if they're not, you will find other clients, you will find other associates, you will find people who are part of your tribe, who get it, who want to work with you. That is not, and I know at the beginning when you're starting out, it's like, oh, I really need this one. No, you don't. No, you don't, because you know what? The second you allow one person to make that decision for you, because that little nugget at the end, that little paycheck is that important, it becomes a real slippery slope, right? And isn't that why you left corporate America in the first place? So yeah, I'm just all about working with people who not only understand it, but embrace it and appreciate it. I love working with the people who get and love that my kids are going to be around.
Yes, all the yeses. Like, you just improve businesses for so many mamas out there just with that entire statement. Ladies, I know you're an entrepreneur listening to this. This has happened to you, at least, if not in the last year, especially in the last year, within your entire journey. I know I used to breastfeed my kid and do Zoom meetings. They didn't see that, but it happens. Or with everything happening, I remember my kids running in. I'm in this really big real estate meeting with gosh knows how many male brokers. and they run out, and I'm just like, I didn't apologize for my children. I apologize for the interruption. And I can't tell you, like, at least half of the gentlemen were like, well, we're dads, we understand.
It's great.
It happened, let's move on. Like, they understand. So of course I'm working with those people a lot in the future. But
Absolutely.
Exactly. So this is how we need to be running our businesses for ourselves. I mean, that's why we got into this, right?
That's exactly right. Because if we're going to, I feel like so many moms, because of the nature of we're the mom, and this is real talk, we are allowed to be vulnerable on your show, Peely, so let's just be real, right? At the end of the day, my husband is wonderful. Your husband is wonderful. All of our husbands and the dads are wonderful. But realistically, at the end of the day, who do our kids, who do our babies come running to? Mama, 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 mama. They want mom. And that's not a bad thing. That's not something to be upset about. That's nothing to complain about. I am so grateful because my babies aren't going to be babies forever. So, and I clearly, I have a little bit of an issue. I still call them babies, and they're 10 and 11. So it's like, I think a lot of moms get caught up in this trap where it's like, well, the burden all falls on me. It's all on me at the end of the day. Well, perhaps, just a thought, think about switching your mindset for a minute and thinking, right, it's not the burden of that falls on you, the honor of that falls on me, right? I mean, these are my kids. They lived inside my belly for an awful long time, and I sang to them and I breastfed them, and that bond, right? It's just how fortunate and how absolutely lucky are we that we have the honor of, at the end of the day, our kids come to us, and our kids want mom's arms wrapped around them, and they want our comfort and all the nurturing. I mean, I'm all about all of us as humans having equal opportunities in starting businesses and so on and so forth. But you can't deny nature also. You just can't. I mean, men have specific things that they are phenomenal and wonderful at. Women also have specific things that they're phenomenal and wonderful at. Does that mean that we can't do many other things outside that? No, we can do many, many other things, but there are specific things like nurturing our kids that they're always going to come to us for. And we just have to, instead of thinking, oh, this is just so much, I can't do it, it's too many things, all this responsibility shouldn't be on me, for a day, just try having the mindset, wake up one day and being like, you know what, I'm going to go into this whole thing with, hey, I'm the man, and not the man, I'm it. I am the one here. I am the one that my kids want to be with, and just embrace that. And take your day from that attitude and realize that all the priorities, they kind of shift, because you realize that you are taking care of what's most important, and then the other things you just somehow learn to slide them in between. It really does work when you flip that little switch, when you decide, make a conscious decision to flip your mindset a bit and embrace the fact that it's you that is ultimately responsible, and you look at it as how cool is that, it really becomes a bit easier. So that's kind of the way I approach it.
Everything. Mamas, go back to that. And papas too. If you're listening to this, papas too, rewind or hit that 15 button many times. Go back and re-listen to that, because that's everything right there. It's not a mind-blowing thing like the mindset thing. We read about it, we hear about it. But it's those times when we don't put it into practice, right, Carol? Those times that we have to remember, okay, this is not I have to, this is not, oh my gosh, I need to do this. It's the I get to do this. I get to make my kids, because of this choice that I made, that we've made to have our own businesses, I have the opportunity to hang out at breakfast with my kids every morning and make them like a 17-dish buffet, because it's a mess and it's crazy and it's ridiculous, but
Because how fun is that? You want a smoothie? Sure, I'll whip up a smoothie. You want some pancakes? Sure, let's just whip it all up. You're not going to eat any of it? Okay, whatever. We'll save it for tomorrow. Whatever. But if you look at it, you just have that mindset shift where you're like, how lucky am I? I get to create. I get to be so absolutely integral in creating all these amazing memories that my kids are going to have. When I'm Grandma Carol someday, my kids are going to be sitting around and talking about, she was ridiculous, but mom made us these crazy, amazing breakfasts every day. And somehow she was like juggling. They probably wouldn't even remember that I was juggling work stuff in the middle of it, right? Because kids just want to be loved. Kids just want the love, and you want, of course, you're a great role model for them and everything else. But yeah, you just watch what you do with that mindset. And another thing I like to, a little bit off topic, but it's all related, right? Is I always try to remember with the kids, and you want to include them in as much stuff as possible. There are so many things pre-kids that I used to say, I need to sit down for a 2-hour chunk of time and get this done, or it's not going to happen, right? Well, I don't know about you, Peely, but 2020 has not afforded me the opportunity of 2 hours ever. And it took me a couple of months to get, into that reality, and not only accept the reality, but to embrace that reality, right? And so I began realizing I'm not going to have a 2-hour chunk of time. So something that before would take me 2 hours is going to take me about 2 months. But you know what? It's okay. Sometimes you realize it's just okay. Again, it goes back to you can't do everything. So am I even going to necessarily try to break it down in all of these manageable chunks like we've been taught for so many years? You set a goal, you break it down into, what is the end goal? You break it down to smaller pieces and smaller pieces and smaller pieces. It doesn't matter how granular you get. Now you're not necessarily, and you've got 1 grain of sand to work with at a time, right? Exactly. And it's all going to blow up in your face anyway. So I have absolutely learned this year, and if you haven't quite figured this out yet, allow yourself the latitude to, instead of expecting that stuff is going to get done with 1 chunk at a time, if you have your kids by your side, you might get a minute here and a minute there and just do itty bitty 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 teeny tiny parts of it, and another itty bitty 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 teeny tiny part of it. And eventually it's going to get done. It might take, a month or 2 months instead of 2 or 3 days like it used to, but eventually it's going to get done. So again, shift your mindset in that, and don't beat yourself up by continuing to have the expectation that you're going to be able to accomplish huge chunks of things in time frames that just don't realistically exist anymore.
See, I'm a big proponent of the one thing and the 12-week year, and those 2 books basically got tossed in my fireplace for 2020. Because like you just said, and I love it because you put all the thoughts that I've been having on, like, why hasn't this been working? Why hasn't my systems that have been tried and true the past, has been like 6 years? These systems that I've created since we started real estate, why aren't they working? Well, it's because it was wrapped around the thought that I had the time. I had this huge chunk of time because my children were in daycare, which I never wanted them to be in the first place. Now it doesn't work. So let's talk about this. I love how this idea is forming in my head, and you know me with ideas. It's doing business, not like a businessman, not even like a businesswoman, but doing business like a mom. Like, how do moms do business? It's entirely different.
It is entirely different. And that is right. There are so many different facets that go into it, but I have to make sure we point out what you just said, because I think it's really powerful what you just said. It's not doing business like a man, not even like a businessman. It's not doing business necessarily like a businesswoman. It's doing business as a mom. And I think that phrase in and of itself, like, that's huge. Like, trademark that. That's really cool. And so it is doing business as a mom, right? And for whatever it's worth, I still, like, we talk about our systems that have worked for us for all of these years that have been fail-proof, right? Well, I still every Monday morning, I wish I had it in this podcast room, but I don't. I still, every Monday morning, I have my list of all the stuff that I carried over from last week and the week prior. And the list is so long, and there's so many things. There are so many things, because we all get such pleasure out of putting the check mark or filling in the box or filling in half the box. And some of us like to do it on a computer. I very much, and I'm also a big proponent of this in my negotiating book. I always talk about too, you gotta write, like physically write stuff down, because if nothing else, you're gonna get a heck of a lot more personal satisfaction, joy, and gratitude about the act of physically coloring in a little square for something you actually accomplished today. Like, that's a really big deal, right? So the point of that very long drawn out story about writing stuff down is that I still have my really, really, really long list, right? And then realistically, the way my kids are structured this year, we live in Florida. The kids had a choice of going back into school full-time wearing a mask, so having a mask on for 6.5 hours a day, or learning from home where they don't need a mask, obviously, but they are sitting in front of a computer 6 hours a day. And so in theory, there should be lots of time for me to get stuff done. That said, these children who are in 4th and 5th grade are trying to edit PDFs, are trying to scan, are trying to figure out why Zoom won't work, right? So basically, I'm IT's technologically disadvantaged. I'm playing IT support person all day in addition to running things. Point of that story is, with my list, doing business as a mom totally means looking at the list. Oh my gosh, I literally have 3.5 minutes before Chase goes on his break. Oh, what can I do in 3.5 minutes? Boom, I need to follow up with this agent. I can totally make that happen in 3.5 minutes. I'll pick up the phone and I'll be like, hey, it's Carol. How's it going? Whatever. Guess what? Here's the deal. I literally have now 3 minutes. I've got a really quick question for you. And that goes back to making sure that you're working with the people who know it, who understand it, who appreciate it, and who embrace it, right? How many of you have had these same conversations as you're doing business now? The very first thing you start talking about is, how are you managing this with all your kids this year? How's your business going? And you take you take 15, 30 seconds to commiserate together and say, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And then you go on and you get your stuff done. So that's how I recommend it, is just doing business as a mom is acknowledging the fact that we are up against this crazy challenge right now, not being afraid to admit it to other people, because we've definitely learned that when you're vulnerable and when you're real, what do people want to do? Do they want to shut you down, or do they want to help you? People are naturally drawn to help you. So you just admit that you're up against this challenge. See if you're in that challenge together. Establish that rapport and use that as a springboard to accomplish what you need to do.
Yes, and I want to pinpoint a key thing, and that everything there was amazing, but you dropped this little golden nugget that I know will help the mamas out there. When you hopped on that call, you took a moment to commiserate, even though it was a second, because mamas. And then you're like, I have 3 minutes to do this. How can we get this done? That's key, mamas. That's key. Can you talk a little bit about that? Kind of like letting people know the time that you have.
Absolutely, yes. I've got to say, with no matter who it is that I'm dealing with, I'm really all about setting expectations, right? And so I think it's funny, because a lot of the people, it's one of those things, there's different little skill sets you have, different little things that you kind of bring to conversations, that you bring to energy, whatever, that you're kind of known for. That's just one of those little things I'm known for, right? People know very, very much that, again, along with my lists and everything, that I'm going to set the expectations. So these are the things we talked about, for example, and I recommend you do this too. Before you go into a meeting, before you pick up the phone, before whatever it is that you're going to be doing, whatever interaction you're going to be having, first of all, to yourself, think about, what do I want? Even just take 10 or 15 seconds to think about, what is the end goal? What do I need to accomplish here? And what do I need to communicate to make sure that we can make that happen, right? So what I love to do, like I said, and I recommend you do this as well, is be the expectation setter for whatever interaction you're going to have, whether it be a phone call, whether it be a meeting. I'll sometimes, depending on the day, I don't have it in here with me, but I have my iPad with my little iPencil, which people just think is really cool. It's really silly, but I'll write it out on my iPad. I'll just scribble it out while everyone's there. I'll be like, okay, everyone, here, we have 30 minutes scheduled for this meeting. Here's what we need to accomplish. And people are like, oh, because how often is it? It's one of those interesting things, right? And I'm curious if you find this too, Peely. Back in the corporate world, right, when we're all working these regular jobs, people kind of had meeting agendas and it was on the whiteboard. And even if someone like made it up on the fly, it was just the thing that you did because you wanted to look all official. But we get in this world of investing, we get in this world of real estate, and we know at the end of the day, there's stuff we want to accomplish, but I find very few people actually take even those 10 or 15 or 30 seconds to really spell out the 1, 2, or 3 things that you really want to make happen, right? So I have found for me to be efficient and effective and be able to wrap up what I need to do so I can get back to my kids, to just set those expectations from a goals and things we want to accomplish perspective, as well as a time perspective. So reiterating to the person or people, these are the things we need to accomplish. This is how much time we have to accomplish it in. Let's go.
Again, doing business like a mama, because you have to do that. I know our 12-week year schedules have gone away, our one things have gone away, but we can still set those expectations like you said. I mean, as mamas, we set expectations for our children, we set expectations for our household. Why not take that into the meetings? Because I'm with you, it's very rare do I step into a Zoom meeting or a Zoom call, especially since we're all doing it now, where it's actually delineated. So when I have that, when I'm like, okay guys, we have 30 minutes to talk about this, let's get it down, let's get this done. And as the time goes down, like when I get to 5 minutes, I actually told them, I'm like, you know what, I have 5 more minutes. Let's start wrapping it up. And I think, especially entrepreneurs, they appreciate that. They appreciate having that system. What do you think?
1,000,000%. Yes. People so appreciate it because we're still all navigating how we do business over Zoom as well too, right? So it adds this other whole interesting dynamic. So we want to spend a little bit of time chit-chatting and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you set that expectation, everybody is so on the same page, and the other person, I promise you, is silently having a sigh of relief. Like, oh, they get it. Because I don't feel like sitting on Zoom all day. I don't feel like sitting on the phone all day. They get it. They totally appreciate that you are respecting the time constraint and that you just want to get stuff done because we all have other things that we need to get to next. So people not only are okay with it, they actually love it.
So before I let you go, because I would like to talk to you all day long, if you could tell my mamas out there, and papas too, but especially my mamas, if you could tell them one thing that could help them get started or help them take them out of a rut that they might be in, or just give them kind of a verbal hug right now.
Yes.
Something that you would tell them.
Mamas, I'm looking right into the camera right now. Here is the deal. Number 1, I'm not going to break it down into numbers. That's not important right now. Here's the deal. All you need to do is think, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen if I went out and did this new venture, if I went out and got started, right? And just break it down. So worst thing that could happen is I could make absolutely no money from this. Then what? Are my kids still okay? Yep, my kids are still okay. Okay, next thing. What's the next possible worst thing that could happen? Oh, I could end up having to move out of my house. Oh, well, is there somewhere else you could move, and would your kids still be okay? Yeah, they're going to be okay because the kids don't care where you live. The kids just want mama's arms wrapped around them. So at the end of the day, my biggest piece of advice is just remember, at the end of the day, if the very worst thing that could possibly happen actually does happen, but your kids are still fine, you're going to be just fine too. So just go out there and realize it's all going to be okay and you too can do it.
Carol, thank you so very much for coming on. This has been such a pleasure. I know you and I have been trying to connect probably for years at this point.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That could be a whole show on how
Totally, yes.
on misconnections. But I've learned so much, and I know my listeners have too. How can my listeners find you and learn more from you?
Thank you for asking, Peely. So my email is carol@caroljscott.com. I have a Facebook account that I very rarely log into. I have an Insta account. It's at CJ Full Circle. I don't even know the last time I was on there. I have a LinkedIn. Again, very technologically disadvantaged. That stuff is not my priority. So Carol@CarolJScott is your best bet, and I will do the very best I can to connect with any of you. Biggest thing is, remember, I'm a mom too. Being a mama is 100% my priority. So if you just need some reassurance that it's all going to be okay, reach out anytime. Would love to chat.
You are amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peely. It was so great to chat with you. We'll see you soon.
And to everyone that's listening, so grateful. Bye now. Join us for your second cup of coffee every Monday through Friday at noon.
Live every day, bringing us our best content we've done so far. Super excited, super engaging, bunch of great guests. We're here to answer your questions, and we so appreciate you listening. Make sure to check us out.
Can't wait to see you.